Hello, I'm Chelsea and I blog at binkiesandbaubles.com. If you're just joining us, this is my second video in my diaries of a miscarriage. In my last video, I kind of just talk about, finding out I was going to have a miscarriage and my thoughts about miscarriage and the way that we don't really talk about it, and my decision to come out and kind of talk about it openly in hopes that other women will feel more comfortable discussing their emotions and their experiences with others. My kids are up right now, so I might have to step away, but I'm hoping I can tell my story. Today I kind of thought I would tell the story from the beginning. The beginning is always a good place to start. So again, if you're just joining us, I have two little girls. I have a 2.5 and a 4.5-year-old. And my husband and I were trying for baby number 3. We were trying very casually. Both of my original pregnancies, or previous pregnancies, I guess, were conceived pretty easily, and very healthy pregnancies, and pretty uneventful labors. I had no reason to think that number 3 could even have the possibility of being miscarried. So I kind of thought that would just never happen to me. But I am 35 now, and so trying could become a little bit more difficult. And as I came to find out, 1 in 5 pregnancies are lost. So I am now part of the statistic. So we found out we were pregnant very quickly after because, I missed my period, and we took a test and I was pregnant, and we were so excited. Quietly keeping our fingers crossed for a boy because we've got 2 girls, even though I would not mind having an army of little princess girls. But, of course, it's still early in the pregnancy. We told some close family and friends, and, we were having fun. I was ordering maternity clothes, thinking about nursery decor, names. It was very real, even though it was still very early. I had a routine doctor's appointment around 10 weeks. We did the ultrasound, and they saw that the embryo had only developed to 6 weeks. At that point, they told me, to expect the miscarriage to actually physically happen within the next 10 days. I went home, and that night, I started to bleed pretty heavily and pass a lot of blood clots, and I can imagine for someone who hasn't been told that they're going to experience that, it would be such an emotional freak out is the only way I can really say that. I mean, devastation. I was kind of lucky in a way that they told me before it happened, so I had a minute to mentally prepare before it occurred. It didn't happen like it does in the movies. I didn't have any cramping, and I just started, like I said, losing blood pretty frequently, and I called the nurses hotline, and they said I was well within the normal amount and not to worry, that I didn't need to run to the hospital, but to keep an eye on it. And by the next morning, it had kind of normalized out to what I would expect with just like a heavy flow of a period. But without the super hard cramps and the keeling over and all that, it was a very interesting feeling that I would have very small pains or just discomfort in the belly and the uterus, and you know, there was a consistent feeling of like, oh my gosh, the baby. And then, you know, I'd have to remind myself that it's already gone, so there's no reason to worry anymore. I think that for me was actually one of the toughest parts, on top of having to tell, you know, my husband over the phone, because he wasn't in the room with me, he was home with the girls, that was what was happening, because the doctor needed me to stay longer. So I had to call him and let him know what was going on, and obviously he was going to know something was not right. So that was a very rough day. My nurses and doctors were all very kind and very supportive, and I can't imagine having a job where you either have such extreme joy in telling people that they have healthy babies, or you have such extreme sadness in telling people that they are no longer pregnant, that their pregnancy is no longer viable, are the words that they used. So I came home and I was heartbroken, and I decided to just tell everybody right then so I could just get it over with. So I texted everybody I had already told. I was too sad to really talk about it, so I just kept everybody up to date, and talked to my husband about it throughout the night. And one of the things I struggle with a lot with even sharing it with the public or with my followers and my community is knowing that even though I have experienced this loss and that my pain is real and that my loss is real, I am still very much on the fortunate side of the spectrum of miscarriage and infant loss. I have two beautiful children who are healthy and wonderful, and my husband and I both feel that if in this journey of parenting, if we are able to conceive soon with a full-term pregnancy, that we will be able to find joy in our two babies and our little family instead of having a big family. And we are okay with that. We'd still like to try. We would still like to try and see if we can have a little boy, or, like I said, just an army of girls, my poor husband. But that's something we would still like to try for. And if it doesn't come naturally, we are open to adopting or, just keeping it the four of us. But that's easy to say because I already have two, and I can only imagine the pain of someone going through one or multiple miscarriages before having their first, or even trying for their second, because I think there's something really important to some people about making sure that their child has a sibling. It's not important to everybody, and that's okay, but I think it is important to some. And when you're trying so hard to have a baby, I can only imagine how painful it must be, because I know how painful it is, but like I said, I'm content because I can be content, if that is where my life leads. But if I couldn't have them at all, I don't know that I could be content. And that's why so many, I think, go through IVF and, try so hard to do anything they can. And rightfully so, having children is the most amazing experience I've ever had. So I try to remind myself that while I'm sharing my story, I also want to be very respectful and acknowledge that I am on the more fortunate side of this experience. I also know many that have gone full term and have lost their babies during labor or shortly after. I even have a few moms in my community that I know of that lost before full term and had to birth their stillborn baby. And, again, it was so early in our conception that sometimes I don't even recognize it as a baby. I know some people are very, once the pregnancy test is positive, it's a baby. But at the same time, like for me, I didn't hear a heartbeat yet. I didn't have a picture, an ultrasound picture yet. We didn't know the gender yet. So that emotional connection was not as heavy as it could be a few weeks later.
Mama.
One moment. Okay, sorry. As I was rambling about, the spectrum of loss, my goal is to share my experience openly. I'm not trying to compare it to anybody else's. As I said before, my experience in losing it so early, I think, has helped me come to terms with it a lot quicker. Also, having children has helped me come to terms with it a lot quicker. And I totally respect that other people's experiences are not the same, and their loss can weigh a lot heavier on them for a lot longer. My goal in opening up and sharing is really just to help those women share with their community, with each other, and know that they are not alone and that we want to support them throughout their path, whatever it may be. And I struggle because right now it's such a taboo topic, and I understand that, especially in the very beginning, the heartbreak is so hard that some people can't even talk about it without crying. And I can imagine that can cause a very deep depression. You can feel so alone, but it's so important to open up and to talk about it. At least it's been very therapeutic for me, and I feel that so many have already responded telling me how therapeutic it has been for them as well to be able to talk to people about it and have the support and love of others. And my daughter is pounding at the door right now. 1 second. What do you need, babe? Oh, it's beautiful. Thank you.
I found this because I didn't draw it.
Oh, look how beautiful. All right, babe. Can you close?
I'm going to color it.
Okay, perfect.
And when I come up here, I'm going to show you how beautiful.
Okay, I can't wait to see it. Sorry. Mwah. Like I said, the kids are here. So, motherhood. So my hope is that we can break down the embarrassment and shame that some women feel, and that we can help them feel empowered in their journey, and that we can let women know, women like me who thought that would never happen to them, that it happens. It happens all the time, more frequently than we think. I waited the 12 weeks. I didn't really want to, but my husband really thought I should. And it turns out he was kind of right, except for I decided to share it with you guys anyway. But I feel like the culture that we have created in waiting the 12 weeks, because statistically 1 in 5 will lose their pregnancy, is giving miscarriage power. It's creating a fear in that, you know, those 12 weeks, that so many different things can go wrong, and they can, obviously, but because they can for everyone, and because it is a common occurrence among women, it shouldn't be a secret. It shouldn't have this cloud of fear over it. We shouldn't have to wait 12 weeks to share our joy that we're pregnant when we're pregnant, just in case we lose it. And it's not fair to, in my opinion, to share later that you've had a miscarriage, or many months or years later, depending on when you decide to talk openly about it, if you ever do, to share that sadness, but not to allow them to be a part of the joy. I regret not sharing my pregnancy from the very beginning, and being able to talk with my community about my nausea and about my exhaustion and my kids driving me crazy and all the things I'm going through that I would normally talk to them about. I didn't. I just disappeared for a while, and nobody really knew what was going on. And then when I come back, I drop this bomb, and now I'm here sharing it. And I just hope we can gradually start being more open and more vocal and more supportive of all of our women in our community who are trying to conceive and are trying to grow their families. Yeah, so I did have my checkup today, my doctor's appointment, and it was inconclusive. They can't tell if the embryo has actually passed. So I might still go through some more patches of heavy bleeding, or I could be pretty much done on Monday. I will have to go in and get a blood test done, and so they'll check my levels to make sure that they're dropping. I can say my body is definitely changing. You know, no more nausea, no more indigestion. My hips and my lower back are still really sore. My skin is going insane, but my heart is content now, knowing that we will try again, and that if it happens, great. And every time I look at my two beautiful girls, I am reminded what a miracle every single child is, because really, when you think about it, it's pretty crazy. There's so much to talk about through this process. There's so many things in my head, but I want to try and keep them pretty compartmentalized for you guys. I don't want to just sit here and ramble, because it's not helpful. So that's my video number 2, and I'll be back soon with more feelings. Yeah, just, I don't know.